Welcome to the Redeemer Podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and today we are talking about student life leadership here at Redeemer University. I am joined by Avery and Peter, who are both serving in different student life leadership roles that we'll get into, and we're going to talk about how Redeemer structures it, supports students, and everything you want to know if you're a prospective student that's looking at living on campus at Redeemer. If it is your first time here, make sure to like and subscribe, share with a friend, and check out some of our other episodes that explore various aspects of Redeemer, Christian education, and so much more. Thank you for making us part of your day. And with that, here we go. And we're back with another great episode of the Redeemer Podcast. I am joined by Peter and Avery, who I'm blessed. We're talking about student leadership today. So any prospective students that want to know kind of about the student life structure or how we as a Redeemer community kind of structure how student activities are kind of formed and born out of it. So I'm really excited to have these two on the podcast. Let's maybe start. Avery, could we start with you? Could you introduce yourself, what you're studying, and how are you involved in student leadership at Redeemer?
Yeah. So my name is Avery. I'm in third year at Redeemer. I'm in the business management program. I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, I'm involved in student leadership through being a Ralph, so working as a residence life facilitator in Res Life, and also in other capacities on campus, just working. But yeah, it's super fun to be a part of student life, and I love getting to just work in leadership and grow in leadership as well.
That's awesome. And for anyone watching who doesn't know, Avery said a resident life facilitator, which we kind of have the acronym for around Redeemer as Ralph, which is just a short form, and it's also really fun. So that there. So Peter, what about yourself? What are you studying at Redeemer, and how are you involved in student leadership?
Yeah, so I'm Peter. I'm currently fourth year studying youth ministry, and then double minor in English writing and psychology. I'm alongside Avery. We work on the same team. I'm also a resident life facilitator or a Ralph. I agree. It's a lot more fun to say.
Yeah.
Some people have even said, "Oh, bless you," and I'm like, "No, that's my job." Um, yeah, so resident life facilitator. I lead a bunch of RAs, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're really excited to dive into this with you guys and give prospective students a kind of a window into Redeemer student life and leadership. So let me just start with this question. Avery, what made you, well, first off, how did you decide to come to Redeemer? And then who was it? Well, maybe it was a person or maybe it was a moment that kind of got you involved in student life at Redeemer.
hmm yeah, so how I came to Redeemer, I didn't even really know it was a place that I could go for school until I was later in high school. I had one friend who was in her fourth year while I was in grade 12, and she was here, and she was the only person I knew that had come to Redeemer. She was the person I kind of found out about it from her, and so she suggested I take a look, and so I came and did a tour. And yeah, once I did a tour, I was pretty sold. I knew that, yeah, I felt like the place that God was wanting me to go to for school. And yeah, I just felt a lot of peace about that decision. So that's how I ended up at Redeemer. I ended up bringing some friends along because they hadn't heard about it either. And so we decided to kind of all come together, which is really sweet. Um, for how I ended up in student life and student leadership, I grew up attending going to summer camps and working at summer camps. And so I've always loved just getting to be in community with people and getting to grow in leadership and especially in Christian community as well. And so for me, it seemed like a really good opportunity to do that. So I first was an RA, and so I got to live and lead in a house of 8 girls, which was super super fun. And then after I had kind of gone through that experience and seen how my Ralph had led us and just the ways that she so intentionally cared for us, I decided like, oh, I think I want to try that too, and challenge myself as well to kind of take the next step in leadership.
That's fantastic. And well, Peter, I'm going to ask you the same question because I am curious. But then after that, we'll get into the structure of student life and kind of an RA and HA or how we kind of structure that. But Peter, how did you come to Redeemer, and what made you want to get involved in student life?
Yeah, great question. So I'm actually from British Columbia, and what drew me to Redeemer in the first place was I had heard through some sort of grapevine, some sort of friends, my youth pastor, that there's this place called Redeemer, and that they had like a really strong focus on community. And that was kind of what drew me into Redeemer was I wanted to go to a school where community was a really big focus, where intentional community living it was prioritized. I'm the youngest of four kids, and my three older siblings they all commuted to university, and I was like, I would rather pay the extra cost to go to Redeemer and go to a place where there's intentional community living than to just commute to school, and so that was kind of what drew me to Redeemer and how I came here. And then what also drew me and pushed me to pursue resident life for student leadership. Similar to Avery, I also did summer camp work. I was a camp counselor, and um,
Classic.
it's very classic. It's tons of fun. But my RA, when I in my first year, he was like, Peter, like I think you should seriously consider being an RA. And so it was something that was like sort of familiar. And the idea of challenging myself and pushing myself to grow as a leader, but also as a follower,
Yeah.
that was something that really interested me. And so then I became an RA, and then my Ralph, who's my boss this year as well, funny enough, my boss or my Ralph at the time, she was like, you should be a Ralph too. You should consider it. Like you will learn a lot from the people you lead. And I was like, I love that approach of humility, and I love that humility and curiosity and leadership. And that was kind of what drew
Mhm.
me to student life or leadership, especially at Redeemer. Kind of that approach of curiosity and humility. I was like, I got to learn more about that. So this is my second time being a Ralph, actually. Um, and yeah, I feel so blessed to be in this position again and to have learned so much from the people that I get to oversee. Feel like I've learned way more from them than I could ever teach them myself.
That's fantastic. Oh, well, thank you both for sharing. And maybe we'll go over to you, Avery. Could you talk a little bit about the kind of the structure of student life and how the different leadership positions are?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess the most recognizable one is probably an RA. So in first year housing, there will be one older student who would be living in the house and leading the house, and they'd be the residence advisor, the RA, and then they would move up to becoming a Ralph, or they would have a Ralph oversee them. And so the Ralph will lead small group with a group of RAs, and they'll meet one on one with that same group of RAs. And so essentially, they're there to kind of mentor and care for those RAs who are doing the same thing for the first year students in their house. And then for upper year housing, there's HAs or housing advisors. And so they oversee a couple dorms. They don't live inside of the dorms, but they meet with them once a week to, just make sure things are going okay, check in on them, pray with them, care for them as well. And they also have a Ralph. So they would have an HA Ralph who will do the same for them, mentor and care for them, meet with them in small group and one on one. And then there's the RLC, so the residence life coordinators. And those are full time staff that meet with the Ralphs one on one and lead their small group and do the same thing, mentor and care for them.
Okay, okay, very, very cool. Thanks for explaining that. And Peter, so you mentioned like you've been an RA, now you're in the Ralph role. Is what I guess can you remember back to your first time being an RA? What was that experience like for you in that leadership position?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can remember it quite well. It was a very memorable time. Yeah, some of the kind of highlights from it and some of the things that I still, yeah, took from it. Um, it was a lot of fun, and it was really what was most fun about it was the ability to kind of bear witness to other people's lives and their walks with God. I remember one of the first days in the job, I taught one of my first years in my dorm what soap was and how to wash dishes, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of different kind of ways of understanding how to do home life, and that was
Mm.
kind of one of the really cool parts of being an RA was getting to witness to how so many, like what kind of families people are coming from, what kind of assumptions people are making about, well, this is how you should organize the kitchen. These are the chores that you're supposed to do. This is how to do them, and getting to bear witness to that, but then also invite people into having good conversations about, okay, well, that's how you do community, but how are we going to do community? How are we
Yeah.
going to live together? And that was like a lot of the role was just understanding and uh, trying to understand people where people are coming from and how to move forward as a community, as a group. Recognizing that if we pull pranks on people's dorms, then we're probably going to get pranked ourselves, and it's going to start a fight. And like, yes, we're our own little small community, but we're also part of the larger Redeemer community. And how like that's also important
Yeah.
to think about. So that was a really big aspect of being an RA, and I remember one thing that I really loved was my small group and the support that I had from my Ralph. Yeah, that
Mm.
was that was such a highlight was the weekly conversations and the opportunities to be poured into and supported as a leader in such an intentional way. That was definitely a highlight for me as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. And now you're in that position to be that support for an your own group of RAs that you help kind of lead and care for. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Avery, I'm actually really curious, what was your experience like being an RA for the first time? Was it similar to Peter's, different?
I'd say, yeah, very similar. I think, especially in learning how different people do home life, I think was a big thing. I was able to just witness in my dorm, between a mix of, yeah, cultures and family sizes and all those different things that kind of, yeah, we don't often think about or realize, but when you're trying to combine a whole mixture, of people and, just habits into one living space, definitely something you learn. And I think, yeah, humility probably a big part of it as well. Just, yeah, learning about those different habits, but also learning how to kind of serve people, and sometimes when they don't really know what they need help with, and trying to step in and just be there for them, and at the same time being, open and honest with fellow RAs and, other staff on like how you're doing and where you might actually need help, and recognizing that while you might be helping others, you also may need help in many areas too. So yeah, very similar experience, and very good experience as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, thank you for sharing. And Peter, I'm gonna kind of circle back a little bit. Avery did a great job explaining kind of the structure of student life. I am wondering if you, Peter, could you talk about, for an RA, what does that look like leading up to the school year? Like, do they communicate with incoming students ahead of time? What does it look like during launch week, that sort of thing? I know that there's a lot of things that go into being an RA, like leading Bible studies, checking in with all your first years. But what does that look like leading up to the school year, and then kind of that first week?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a very good question. So, kind of the hope and the expectations are for when you are an RA is that you uh, kind of months before students actually show up to your dorm, you'll kind of get an email that has their contact information, even has a little bit about them, and then as the RA, it's kind of your job to figure out, okay, so um, I got to connect with these people. I got to make a group chat. I got to start that conversation of, hey, like, let's just kind of try to get to know each other a little bit. I know of some RAs who would have FaceTimes with some of their first years that in like June and just say,
Wow.
hey, like, what are some of your fears about coming into community life? And so that's kind of the expectation as well as the hope, is that the RAs reach out and are proactive in uh, interacting and connecting with the first year students that are assigned to their dorm. And then as the students kind of gear up and it gets closer to move-in day, they kind of communicate really necessary information about launch. If any of the students have questions, the RAs are equipped to be able to answer them. And if they don't know, they know who to ask for help. And then during launch and launch week and kind of the first few weeks after, um, the RA's responsibility, but also honor, is they get to just welcome them into Redeemer community, welcome them to Redeemer life, kind of set the expectations for what Redeemer is like, and how you're going to function as a dorm, and so that's a lot of what the RA's role is, kind of leading up, is just reaching out to people, being proactive, making themselves available, and then when students actually show up, really prioritizing making themselves available for any questions, for any concerns. And then there's a lot of kind of startup meetings that happen in the first few weeks, of a couple meetings a week, where you're having dorm meetings 3 or 4 times a week, where you're like, okay, hey, welcome to Redeemer, welcome to this community, to this dorm. Let's figure this out together. Let's figure out how to live together well. And that's a lot of what that RA's responsibility is really making sure that students feel welcomed and safe coming to Redeemer, especially knowing that a lot of students coming into Redeemer for the first time, this could very well be their first time away from home, and that's a really big deal. And so the RAs are aware of that and equipped to be able to have conversations and support people. And one of the most fun parts about being an RA is kind of that initial decorating stage, or of wondering, how am I going to make this dorm home for these students? My mom was like, Peter, you have to bake chocolate chip cookies so that when the parents show up, when the students show up, they're like, oh, we're already home. And so I did, and that gave me brownie points, or cookie points, I should say.
I love that. Avery, it looks like you might have something to kind of add into that.
Yeah, I think definitely like making a space feel like home makes such a big difference. Like I think as RAs, we had the opportunity to go thrifting during training, and so we were able to kind of find some decorations that we could put in the living room and in the kitchen, just to make it feel, more like a home and more like a space that the girls or the guys coming in could just really settle into and feel comfortable.
That's fantastic. Well, I know we don't have too much time left, but I want to thank you both for doing this. Could we just one final question for you both? And Peter, we'll maybe start with you. What advice would you have for first year students that are coming into, and maybe like you said, they are new to the idea of community living and student life and leadership and things like that? What advice would you give to incoming students to Redeemer?
Hmm. Hmm. I really like this question, especially because I never had some sort of Redeemer tour, and so I kind of cold turkey just showed up to Redeemer, no idea what to expect, no idea what was happening. So I love this question. Um, one piece of advice that I would give first year students, anyone coming in, honestly, whether or not you're just fresh out of high school or you're a more mature student, um, is work through the fear of buying into the community. Redeemer
Mm,
is a really cool and unique place. There's a lot of different clubs and a lot of opportunities to engage in the community in really unique ways that are specific to your interests. Right, like there's a crocheting club, which is so epic, and there's like a chess club, and there's a lot of ways that you can buy in, and that's kind of my big encouragement, is as you are afraid or anxious or really excited, think about how you can buy in and kind of be brave and face your fears of trying to connect with people and really buy into your dorm, um, and especially the relationship with your RA. Buy into that, but buy into the community at whole. Like Redeemer is a really cool and special place with a lot of really cool people, and I'm continually blown away by just how interconnected everyone is. Where I'll walk around campus and I'm like, how does that person know this person? Like they seem worlds apart in my mind, but there they are, friends. And so that would be my piece of advice: is face the uncomfortableness of putting yourself out there, and try your best, do your best to buy into the community here. It's a really special place.
That's fantastic advice. Yeah, thank you for sharing it. Avery, what about you? What advice would you have for incoming first year students to Redeemer?
Yeah, I think mine would be similar and just like pushing yourself to get involved. It can be definitely super intimidating and scary if you're coming in not really knowing people and kind of uncertain about how things might go. But I think, yeah, the best way to meet people and just the best way to learn about your own strengths and your own gifts is to get involved, whether it's in clubs and like attending worship nights and rooted and just going to all the different things that Redeemer has to offer and just really learning about the community past just classes or past your own dorm. But really, yeah, really just digging in and just getting out there. And especially during the first couple months of school when there is so much going on and there's so much to get involved in. I think it's a really great opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for coming on and sharing a little bit about your experiences about being in student leadership at Redeemer, and thanks for serving in student leadership at Redeemer and blessing others. It sounds like you guys have been blessed by leaders that came before you, and that's it's pretty cool how that structure works out. But Peter and Avery, thank you both so much for coming on the Redeemer podcast. Really appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
And if you are watching this, thank you for tuning on into another episode of the Redeemer podcast. We will, if you have any questions, feel free to check the description below, admissions@redeemer.ca if you want more information about applying. And as always, God bless, and we will see you in the next episode of the Redeemer podcast.